Are you ready to take control of your wealth and design the life you envision for yourself and your family? Welcome to Wealth of Insight with Austyn Whittenburg from Whittenburg Wealth Partners. Austyn guides you through the entire planning process to help you build a plan that seeks to protect your financial future. He empowers you with creative investment opportunities and planning ideas to help you understand and achieve your long-term goals. It's time to gain confidence in your financial future. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the Wealth of Insight podcast. I'm your host, Austyn Whittenburg. And today we're going to be talking about something that's becoming increasingly a larger part of our conversation with our clients, especially those that are business owners or high net worth families, but seems to just be a more prevailing concept, in the public at large. And so what we're going to be talking about today is having a family financial summit or family meeting or any number of words that you could use to describe what we're going to talk about today. So we'll go through the pros and cons, some of the things that you should have on the agenda, and if it's something that fits for your situation overall. So we're going to be using the term family financial summit. So that's where we'll start. And just what is a family financial summit? And the most important piece of this meeting is just that it's a family gathering to share your financial values and your goals. So especially for those who are business owners, like I mentioned, or parents of high net worth families, we talk often about you want to make sure you transfer enough to your kids that they can do anything that they want, but not so much that they can do nothing, right? If you understand that concept. So this is about how, yes, you can pass money on to your family, but how do you make sure that your vision and your values and your goals for that money and for your family are able to get passed down through the generations as well? So this meeting helps foster that alignment between the different generations of the family to make sure that those values get passed along as well and to prepare for the future. And so really to determine if it is a good fit for your family situation, there's a few topics that you would address to make sure that, again, it is the right fit for your situation. So the first, and this is something that everybody probably should be discussing, is just inheritance and wealth distribution. So you really want to dive into, here's the things that we have. And now you don't have to be specific with numbers here. I know oftentimes some parents are a little bit nervous about disclosing numbers. So we've done this both ways with our clients, where we've talked, about what the numbers actually are, and others just in generalities about how there will be an inheritance and how things are going to be distributed. That way, everybody in the family is on the same page. So you delve into how the assets will be distributed. And this is the important part, including conditions, and conditions maybe is too strong of a word, but guiding philosophies behind why the money's being distributed in certain ways. And that way you can manage expectations and fairness across those who are inheriting the money. That going back to the quote, you want to make sure you leave your kids enough that they can do anything they want, but not so much that they can do nothing. That's part of this. How is the money being distributed? Are there charities or other things involved here that are important as part of the family picture, just to make sure that, again, everybody's on the same page? And this can really help. Unfortunately, you hear so many stories these days of families who are fighting over money in inheritance because somebody got left something that another child or beneficiary thought was theirs, et cetera, and can cost a lot of money, but also just ruin family relationships. All of that can be avoided by having a discussion prior to on how this is all going to play out. So that gets into your estate planning, right? And the details of the wills and the trust and the overall estate planning structure. Who's in charge of making medical decisions should the parents in this situation need help there? Who's in charge of making financial decisions? What assets may be set aside for long-term care or other types of things? So making sure that everybody understands, here's how the estate plan works. Here's who's in charge of making which decisions. Again, just trying to simplify for everybody and make sure that everybody's on the same page. There's no fighting or arguing amongst the beneficiaries of how this is all supposed to play out. Again, just trying to help ensure those family maintain those family relationships And again, that passing down of the values and the guiding philosophies behind all this, behind the estate plan is a key component there. Especially, again, more and more now we're starting to deal with families who have a donor advised fund, which is their own little charity that they've set up, or maybe there are charities that the family wants to support as part of this overall plan. So those probably are the two most important. The third, if you are a business owner, you own your own business, especially if it's a family business and there are kids working in the business, you want to make sure you have a discussion about the succession plan for the business. So what's the future of the family-owned business? What does the transition look like? So if the goal is to maintain that business going forward and maintain the business legacy, what does that transfer to the second generation look like? Are those going to be family members or not? And if there are still family members in the business, what's their role? You want to make sure that is, again, really clearly defined, because that business, upon death or retirement, let's say, of the principal owner, there can be a lot of disruption to the business if it hasn't been clearly communicated on how the transition is supposed to work. And for high net worth families where you may be dealing with extra taxes or things that come along with the size of your estate, you want to make sure that business has been properly discussed, because you may need to find money elsewhere, depending on the estate plan, to make sure that all the proper taxes and things get paid. So definitely you want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with the flow of the estate plan, the inheritance and wealth distribution, how things are being distributed, and the business succession piece. Who's going to take over the business? If there are kids in the business and out of the business, how does that get potentially equalized? And another conversation we frequently have here is equal fair, right? Can the distribution be not necessarily equal dollar for dollar, but still be a fair distribution, depending on participation from other family members, especially in a family business situation, right? If some of the family members have been putting their blood, sweat, and tears into the business, they may end up inheriting a little more than the others, but can still maintain some fairness based on that sweat equity that they've put in. So that's another thing. Again, you just want to make sure that all of these conversations are had. You can be as specific or general as you want, depending on the level of sophistication and probably ages, right, of the people who will be taking over the business or inheriting these assets. But if these conversations have been had ahead of time and fleshed out, everybody can be on the same page and understand the reasons why things are happening in a certain way. Once those major topics are handled, then you can move on to things like the investment side of things. How do we manage our money? How much risk are we taking? What are the things we want to invest in? What do we not want to invest in? What may be available to support family goals if somebody wants to start a business or go to school or whatever it may be? What sort of plans are in place to help facilitate some of those goals for other family members? So you have a discussion here about the objectives as a family and long-term, back to some of those, again, conditions is maybe too strong of a word, but the philosophy behind the money, and that it's there to support the family to achieve some of the important goals for the family. And then again, back to, who's managing the money, what investments are we going to invest in or not, and how that all works. Then you certainly can talk about life insurance and other insurance needs. What sort of insurance is in place? Where does it go upon death? What's it set aside for, et cetera, right? There can be, again, depending on your estate plan, some really significant different types of trusts that are for insurance only, or maybe it just flows down to the family and gets distributed amongst the other assets. But again, having a discussion on how that all works can really help get everybody on the same page and maintain some of those family relationships. That applies to long-term care insurance as well, right? If long-term care insurance is something that you own, talking about how it works and when it comes into play and what it's there for. Again, just making sure that everybody is on the same page. Then and then taxes become also a large part of this conversation. Taxes today, what sort of tax liabilities may there be if there's real estate that's going to be sold, and how taxes may or may not be passed on to the next generation, again, depending on the type of estate planning that has been done. So and this would also be what we're frequently seeing now, where the charity and charitable conversation comes into play as a way to help minimize taxes. So just walking through how the taxes may work on the current plan and what that looks like going forward, again, so everybody's on the same page. And if there are taxes that are due, everybody knows that there's money set aside for that. And then depending on timing here, and some of the age of the beneficiaries, if they're younger, you may want to spend some time talking about budgeting and just getting how to get sort of the basics of a financial plan put in place for the younger generations on their own, exclusive of all this stuff, so that they're in a good place. And they've got good, solid, financial foundation to be able to understand the inheritance plan. And if there are assets that come their way, making sure that they're prepared emotionally and from an educational standpoint to take over the estate plan and these philosophies and the goals and the vision and the values of that older generation. So there's a lot of things at play here. And, like I said, it's becoming a larger and larger part of conversations we're having with our clients, to the point where we're even involved in a lot of these meetings, because having an agenda, having an advisor or a third party, someone who can be sort of an objective third party just to walk through all of this for everybody, so that it feels like it's coming from this place of love and that it's clearly defined, I think can be really effective. So you want to make sure, if you are thinking, hey, these family financial summits sounds good to me, that's something we ought to be doing, certainly reach out to your advisor or reach out to us, and we can help walk through what that looks like. We've done this in a number of ways. We've done them via Zoom. We've had families fly in from out of state to go to a sort of remote location, just where it's just themselves, so they can have these types of conversations. There's a number of different ways to make this effective. You want to make sure you prepare, that you're not going into this blind. You've reviewed the agenda prior to, and you know what you're trying to accomplish as part of this conversation, right? We want to lay all this stuff out, but we want to know, what's our objective? Why are we having this conversation? Is it just to make sure everybody's on the same page? Are there some potential challenges that may come up that we want to make sure we get addressed beforehand? We want to have a clear objective there. And really the overarching goal is just to maintain a good level of family harmony. Again, too often we hear about families who are broken up or relationships ruined because of conversations that could have been had prior to a parent's death or whatever it may be, to make sure that process goes smoothly. And so if you have, you can make sure that this wealth that you've accumulated serves as a tool for unity, rather than something that's going to divide the family, by having these conversations. So again, if this is something you think that sounds appealing for you and your family, please reach out to us. You can find us at our website, www.whittenburgwealth.com. You can also call or text me at 801-839-7056. If you think this sounds like something that would be appropriate for your family or friend, please feel free to share this episode. And always remember to like and subscribe to the Wealth of Insight podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth of Insight podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners and Whittenburg Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Whittenburg Wealth Partners. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.